Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, where small business is simplified for greater results. Brought to you by Resources and Development. Go to www.resources-development.com for help in taking your business to the next level. And now, help me welcome the host of the Biz Easy podcast, Steve McCrillis.
Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, coming to you live from the farmlands of Middle Tennessee, your resource to help take your business to the next level. My name is Steve, your host, as we all learn how to stay better focused on the things that make you great. Now, I'd like to introduce you to my partner and our resident guru of coaching and our blog writer of the day, our lead business coach, Skip Williams.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, do you know how you go about getting a country girl's attention? Attractive.
I was going to say I shudder to ask this, Skip, but I give. And I knew it was going to be something very hackneyed, but I just knew it was coming. You know, I hope that people appreciate the dad jokes that you come up with every week, because this is some research. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know business. I don't know dad jokes. I'm not very funny.
No, I'm all contrary. I think you do know dad jokes. That's the point.
I may be funny looking, but I'm not very funny.
I say that all the time. So today we are actually going to deep dive into the psychology of persuasion. Tell me, Skip, how the information we are about to hear works for us in our businesses. Or wait, should we save that for the conclusion?
No, that's a good time to ask. We always want to persuade, right? Whether we're persuading customers, employees, banks, lenders, whatever. The whole idea is how do we persuade? Sales is persuading, and we are constantly selling or persuading all day long. So,
great for your austerity.
Aristotle coined the Greek terms ethos, pathos, and logos to explain both the proof of artistic value and the modes of persuasion. In business, as in life, persuasion is meaningful and important to every exchange with clients and customers, and of course, people in general. Presentations in business, especially in marketing, the delivery is meant to be a means to convey information that will help the audience make an informed decision about something, be it how or why something is meaningful or necessary to another person or persons. I find it fascinating to tie both the art and the persuasion together, because these three things define what a piece of art is versus an object, and also gives us a roadmap as to how to persuade others. So, in homage to Aristotle, let's call this the art of persuasion and break it down the way that he would. Ethos is the ethical appeal, means to convince an audience of the speaker's credibility or character. The speaker would use ethos to show their audience that they are a credible source and is worth listening to. Ethos is the Greek word for character. The word ethic is also derived from the word ethos, and ethos can be developed by making yourself sound fair or unbiased, or introducing your expertise or accomplishments or your pedigree, and by using correct grammar and syntax, for that matter. When I think of ethos, I like to emphasize the empathy part. When trying to convince someone to do something, never recommend something that's not in their best interest. Even if that means losing the sale today, it sets you up for a long-term, fruitful relationship, because you've gained that huge amount of trust by being trustworthy. So honesty gains trust, and trust gains sales.
So the act of having ethos, would that be ethodical? Or is that a stretch?
Ethodical, I'm not even sure what that word means.
Okay, it is a word, so we'll move on to that later. See, I think you hit on a key point here, Skip, that bears repeating. Never recommend something that is not in their best interest. Now, this suggests a point we've spoken about many times. People don't like to be sold, but they do like to buy. With the proper information, the client is inclined to look at their needs and decide what they need, what it is you're offering, rather than you convincing them. So do I have ethos nailed down?
It sounds right, Mr. Vocabulary.
You're hung up on ethodical, aren't you?
Exactly.
Okay.
You're gonna have to tell me what that means, and everybody else can look it up while we're talking.
Okay, we move on.
All right, pathos. We move from ethos to pathos. Pathos, is that emotional appeal. The means to persuade an audience by appealing to their emotions. Authors use pathos to invoke sympathy from an audience or to make the audience feel what the author wants them to feel. A common use of pathos would be to draw sympathy from an audience, for example. Another use of pathos would be to inspire anger from an audience, or perhaps in order to prompt action. Pathos is the Greek word for both suffering and experience, oddly enough, and the words empathy and pathetic are derived from pathos. Pathos can be developed by using meaningful language, emotional tone, emotion-evoking examples, stories of emotional events, implied meaning. During the political season here, everybody's got a story of, like the Joe the Plumber story or whatever that they use in order to make their point. So you see this in everyday commercials using children, puppies, and other things that tug at the heartstrings. They might be selling jeans or coffee, but the commercial barely mentions the product. It rather seeks to evoke an emotional response. So emotion gains interest, and the interest gains sales.
Now, from the word pathos, does that come pathological, which is the exact opposite of having emotion?
I'm sure it's rooted in there, exactly. Which is kind of preying upon people's emotions, isn't it?
Okay, fair enough. Help me better understand how this works and applies to us.
Well, if we can gain their interest through emotion, some sort of emotional appeal, that how they'll feel better if their deodorant could solve their body odor problem, or how we could just make them feel better about feeding the best dog food to their pet, then we can gain their interest. And if we can gain their interest, if we add logos to it here in just a second, we can probably gain the sale.
Or if they can feel a little bit more successful in accomplishing their original ambitions or expectations, that is an emotional impulse as well, is it not?
Sure, there's a million ways to hit the emotional hot buttons.
I mean, often when we talk about specifically doing analysis or surveys on business, you're talking to the business owner about what his expectations originally were. And when he begins to talk about his dream, his desires when he got started in the business, why he got started in the business, and then level it off to where he is today and ask him, are you where you expected to be? And he says, no. Where would you have expected to be? Now that becomes that emotional part. Look, I really expected to be here, and I'm not. That's that emotional aspect that I think that I try to bring out in somebody. Well, what's kept you from getting there? What's kept you from achieving all those things? And then work on those things.
Yeah, what was your original vision? And if your business could realize that original vision, what would it mean to you? Those sorts of things, exactly.
Absolutely.
So logos is the appeal to logic. It means to convince an audience by using logic or reason. To use logos would be to cite facts and statistics, historical and literal analogies, and citing certain authorities on the subject. Logos is the Greek word actually for the word word. And however, the true definition goes way beyond that. It can be most closely described as the word or that by which the inward thought is expressed, or the inward thought itself. The word logic is derived from logos.
Okay.
Logos can be developed by using advanced theoretical and abstract language, citing facts, that's very important, using historical and literal analogies, like I said before, and by constructing those logical arguments. People are seldom sold by the use of logic, but logic can be used to seal the deal. Using logic in your sales communication is designed to reduce that buyer's remorse. So if logic can create reasons, then the reasons can gain sales.
I've always been of a belief that there is an element of emotion in every sale. It must be supported by logic and reason for it to stand. Hence, the buyer's remorse syndrome we've all been guilty of. It's an emotion the higher the remorse, the higher the emotion, the higher the remorse. The more it's supported by logic, the stronger the product position. Do you agree with that assessment?
You hit the nail right on the head, Steve. That's exactly right. We buy, we have the desire to buy based on emotion, but we can often come down off that high if that's all that we have is emotion. So as long as we have a good solid reason why this product or service is going to benefit me and that it's a good value, then that kind of seals the deal.
I'm not poking holes at the industry, but I've always found that buying a car, new or used, they try to use a great deal of emotion to initiate the sale. Mm-hmm. And it's always humbling to hear them try and make some logical argument why you should buy it.
Right. Although the one that always gets me is, this is the greatest car. It never breaks down. It's dependable, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to buy the extended warranty?
Of course. An albatross from which you will never emerge.
Well, is it reliable or isn't it reliable?
You know, citing an interesting but useless story to this conversation, I remember looking to buy a car at one point in time, and I could tell that this salesman was green. And we came up to a stop sign. He was sitting in the back seat. My wife was sitting in the passenger seat, and I was driving. We came up to a stop sign. It was one of the first cars that actually had that shut off, where the engine actually shut off and then started again when you put your foot on the accelerator. And I came up to the stop sign, the car shut off. He goes, "Stop, wait, did you hear that?" He goes, "No, you didn't, because the car is saving gas." My wife and I looked at each other and went around.
I got a couple of those stories too, but we'll save them for another day.
Yeah. Bring us to a conclusion on this one, Skip.
All right, kind of a lengthy conclusion here, but bear with me. The subject matter in play has been most of your life to request and convince or simply convey an idea important to you or to another person or persons in business, especially in our marketing efforts. We must make our greatest point often with the least number of words and phrases. To persuade your audience effectively, the proper use of ethos, pathos, and logos, once you understand them, becomes critically necessary in our marketing efforts. We often refer to the conversion equation, which describes the 4 parts of great marketing materials. For review, they are interrupt, engage, educate, and offer. Typically, one might use pathos in writing the interrupt and engage portions. The educate could also contain the pathos, but should primarily contain the ethos and the logos. So when we're writing the interrupt portion, we should be asking ourselves what problem my customer has that they wish they didn't. There's the pathos. When writing the engage portion, we should illustrate what their life might be like if they didn't have those problems, didn't have that problem. Also pathos. When writing the educate portion, we should talk about the authority of how your company is best suited to fix the problem and exactly what you'll do to solve the issue. This uses both the ethos and the logos. And when writing the offer, we want to make them an offer of which they would be foolish for not taking advantage. Included in the offer would be ethos, pathos, and logos. So who knew that scholars and Greek philosophers had prepared our marketing formulas and delivered methodologies hundreds, if not thousands of years ago? So when you're developing your marketing materials or trying to convince someone to do something, don't reinvent the wheel. Remember Aristotle. Speak with authority, use passion and empathy, and follow it up with logic.
And that would have been a great beginning, because now that really kind of sums it up for me. Once again, Skip, you've managed to fill the brain with logic, reason, and emotion. So I remember when I was out traveling the countryside visiting small business owners, I chanced upon a fellow analyst at an airport. His name was Jeff Gabor. Unfortunately, he passed away. But he was a delightful guy. He was a very smart guy, and he used these 3 aspects in every one of his surveys to talk about the business, where they are, where they'd like to be, and where emotionally this entire process could take them. And I remember him talking about ethos and pathos all the time. It was very interesting. This is all kind of a reminder of that thing. But a great guy, excellent analyst, very persuasive, using these very simple philosophies that have been around for thousands of years. Let's be honest. What else? What else can you use or say to summarize this for our listeners? Again, I'm going to have to hearken to our website, so you can access the blog that Skip has written about this at resources-development.com. Take a look at that, read it through. But Skip, what can you offer to us in conclusion?
Honesty, passion, and logic. That's more or less what we're talking about here, translated from the Greek into English.
Yeah. I always have this discussion with my wife, and she's kind of actually taken this and used the same argument. I believe that logic and emotion on two different sides of the spectrum. You can never occupy two places at one time. The closer you are to logic, the further away are from emotion. You can't do everything completely logically, and you can't do everything emotionally. Somewhere on that spectrum, you'll find a man or a woman or a person in general. It's just where you can meet on those three things. And this really kind of nails that down a little bit more succinctly for me. And I appreciate your research on this, Skip, and the words. And with that, I think we utilized our time. I hope you made it to work safely. And that is
That's a wrap.